Good morning, children. In the previous chapter, you learned about uh, the early computing machines. Today, we'll be learning about the generations of computers and how it developed, for what reason it was developed, for what usage it was developed, and what components were being used to develop this till today's what computers we are using, how it was developed from the beginning till today. So, let me share and teach you the generations of computers. We have 5 generations of computers. So we'll see what are the generations, what components they used for working of these computers. Okay, children. Okay, generation of computer, you can see all these type of different things that are being used to generate a computer. We'll start right away. So you can see here some have given integrated circuit, the third generated generation what they used, and but we don't know which generation uses what. This very large integrated circuits. Okay, the first generation computer, it was in the year 1940 to the year 1956. The first generation computers use vacuum tubes, which are really very huge, right? This is the first generation computer where they use vacuum tubes for circuitry, and magnetic drums were used for the memory purpose. And they were often enormous, taking up entire. They were so huge that they took up an entire room. So basically, the first generation computers created the vacuum tube type of computer for the purpose of accounting and for payroll applications. But these valves that were made, they were very unreliable because they generated a lot of heat, and so the computer would stop up. So, and it had very limited memory storage, though it occupied such a big room, but the memory storage was very, very limited. And for making this memory storage, they used the magnetic drums were developed for storing information. They also developed it using the tapes as a secondary storage device. You know what is a secondary storage device that you use now is your pen drive and the CD and all. So they had used tape system for the secondary storage. Initially, they were programs that were developed in the machine language. And the machine language, uses the binary system that is zeros and ones. So the programs were developed in machine language, that is binary system. Later, they had assemblers, and the assembly language was developed. Now the programming that they did was in the assembly language. Now see, in the second generation, in the second generation they developed transistors. Look at the picture of the transistor. The second generation was in the year 1959 to 1964. They used transistors. The transistors look like this. And who had developed it, the transistors? It was Bell Labs in the year 1948. It just revolutionized the whole, it made a big change in the development of computers. Here, transistors were very much smaller than the vacuum tubes. They were very rugged. Rugged means you can use it very roughly, no problem. And it was very cheap and very reliable. Compared to the valves, it was much more better. And their memory, that's called the core memory, they introduced the disk storage system. They started using this disk storage system. Hardware also became smaller and reliable. Instead of having such a big thing for memory storage, they used the hardware which was much more smaller and reliable. And what language did they follow? They followed the high level programming language. And first generation used the assembly language. The fourth generation used the high level programming language. And what are those languages that they developed at that time? It was Fortran and COBOL were developed as the high level languages during that time to make the computer operate, for the softwares, that is. So the softwares that were developed for the computers was Fortran and COBOL. Thus, there was a great growth in the second generation of computers. You can see this is Bell Labs, where the second generation, that's the transistors, were developed. It's their headquarters is in Murray. It's in New Jersey, US. The third generation computer, which is in the year 1965 to 1971, they developed the integrated circuit. Now look at the third generation integrated circuit. It looks like that. There's another thing. We use it even today in our computers. This is the integrated circuit. The integrated circuit was much smaller. You can see it's very small. It's cheaper, faster, and more reliable than the transistors. So first generation you had vacuum tubes. Second generation you had what? Transistors. In the third generation we have the integrated circuits. And how was the speed? The speed was so fast that from microseconds, now they could do the work in nanoseconds, that is billionth of a microsecond, and more faster it developed and it became picoseconds. They could do the work that's trillionth of a microsecond. So ICs were mainly used as a main memory. Though it was volatile, volatile means it would be erased. It's not permanent. So ICs had their where did they use these integrated circuits? In the main memory, and it was volatile. And during this time, the mini computers were developed, and many of them had bought the mini computers. And here you can see it had terminals. These terminals were replaced with punch cards, and they started doing data entry. Data entry is nothing but typing work. And their storage system was called a disk pack. And who developed these integrated circuits? It was the IBM that upgraded these computer people to develop more upgraded things. So now IBM took up all these type of developments for making the computer much more easier, faster, cheaper, and much reliable. So IBM started upgrading the system to a more powerful machine, and then they had started the development of operating systems. You know what are your operating system? Without the operating system, I can't operate the computer. It gives instructions to the computer for working. That's a software. The software has the operating system. They're developed to manage and share the resources. Thus, used in, for what were they used for? The computers? Now they were used for business systems, for administration. And you can see what is a disk pack. I put a picture of here. The storage, it's become much more smaller, not like that big room. So the operating systems were developed to manage and share the resources. Okay, it was used in the business and administration. Then many transistors were fabricated on a single chip. They were called as scale integrated. So on one single chip, they created these transistors. They're called a scale of integration. The early chip had SSI, means small scale integrated circuit. Then in the fourth generation, they made it as very large scale integrated circuits. Here what did they do? They created the microprocessor. So you can see this, a small single chip, and in this chip they had all the transistors. How many transistors were fixed in it? 10,000 transistors were fitted into one single chip instead of putting them separately like this. All these circuits were they put into one, and thus the microprocessor was developed. So in the fourth generation, in the third generation, it was integrated circuit. In the fourth generation, it was the microprocessor that was developed. And many companies started developing the microprocessors. What are the companies that develop microprocessors? Intel, Motorola, Texas Instruments, and Zillow. They started developing microprocessors. IBM at that time started developing the personal computers, and they called it the IBM PC. And what type of microprocessors they use? They use the 8088 and the 8086 microprocessors. And the storage capacity also increased. And what was the storage capacity? It increased from 1000 megabytes to 1 gigabyte. And on the software side, the operating systems, what type of operating system you? Now we're using Windows. They use even Unix and Linux and many other operating systems. But during the fourth generation, it was Unix operating systems that were developed. And in this generation, the microprocessor, it was worked so fast. The processing work was done so fast. It was very fast, easy, and very fast. The fifth generation computer, we are living in which generation? We are living in the fifth generation. It starts from 1980 till today. So in the fifth generation computer, What are the researchers doing to develop the computer? They are focusing on making the computer a thinking computer to work on its own without the help of human assistance. That's why they're called as thinking computer. And what was the technology they gave for the thinking computer? They called it as artificial intelligence. Man uses his own ability to think and do many works. So that is because he's having an intelligence. So if I want the computer to get some intelligence to work on its own, think on its own, make decisions on its own, then they have termed such type of computer as a artificial intelligence. So the computers that are being used in the fifth generation computers are called as artificial intelligence. Clear, children? Now let's see the generations right from first to the fifth and what technology was used. First generation used the vacuum tubes. Second generation used the transistors. Third generation integrated circuits. Fourth generation the microprocessor. And the fifth generation uses, they're still researching, and actually you have many things that are working on artificial intelligence, like your self-driving cars, that's Tesla cars. You have when you talk on the Google, you just speak and it answers you back. You have that Alexa, you have Siri and many other things, and all your health that is detected is done because of artificial intelligence. But there's a lot to develop in this field. So I hope you understood the lesson. We'll continue with the types of computers which are even used today, right? We are using many different types of computers for different works. Okay, you use a supercomputer for what? You use a mainframe computers for what? So in the next class, we'll be learning about the different types of computers used for different purposes. Thank you, children. I hope you understood the lesson. Stay safe. Do your homework. Thank you.